Hey guys, so here's your review that I said I was going to do. Took me a little bit longer to get done, so I'm going to get this going. Having a hard time adjusting. So chapter 3, remember anything that we did vocab-wise, you're going to start there. So you got to know your vocab. Okay? And then also, like, if I were you guys, I would write this down in your notes. This is going to be a private video, so I'm not going to actually post it on YouTube, but it will be a YouTube link. It'll just be private. So you got to know your vocab. And when in doubt, study pink, yellow, blue. I don't think we had yellow at all, but maybe? I'm not sure. So guaranteed know these two. Know your vocab and study pink, yellow, blue. When it comes to solving, remember you're going to solve them as if they were equations. But remember the one thing that you need to do when you multiply or divide by a negative in order to solve for that inequality, you've got to flip it. So flip the inequality. When? Multiplying or dividing. In order to solve for x. But also remember another way of thinking about that. That's multiplying slash dividing or solve for x. If you want to think of it this way, if your last step is multiplying or dividing, then you have to flip it because that means your best friend is negative. So your best friend, remember, is always right next to you, or your best friend can be underneath you. Your dots, I'm going to do dots and lines together. And actually, I'm going to be doing open dot, open dot, close dot. I don't know how I want to do this. I'll do it this way. Open dot, close dot. And so open dot is going to be greater than or less than. And then closed dot is greater than or equal to, or is less than or equal to. And guys, on this, don't forget your is's. I did that split second, but I'm not going to redo it. The video, actually. So don't forget, is less than, is greater than, pardon me, I was looking at it backwards. Is greater than, is less than, is greater than or equal to, is less than or equal to. But these inequalities also go with the dashed line. And then the solid line. So the dots are for number lines, and the lines are for your coordinate plane. So let's go number line. And this is coordinate plane. So that's what these are for. Did that even make sense? Is it easy to follow? Oh, I hope so. But this is what you would look for when you're graphing. What else do I want to do? Graphing. Okay, so when you're graphing on your number lines, 3 numbers. 3 numbers. 1 in front, 1 in back, and the number you're talking to. I'm recording just so you know.
You are?
This should get interesting. So 3 numbers. Well, you know what they are. Number in front, number in back, and the number that the problem's actually talking about. On the coordinate plane, though, I would make it at least... Oh, no, you guys have graph paper, so don't even worry about that. I'm a little scatterbrained. I've got a lot going on in my brain because I'm thinking about the test, too. Let's see. Compounds. Okay, I'm going to erase all this. It's kind of messy today. But hopefully you have that. If not, pause it. Yeah, because I'm thinking about the test, thinking about the problems, and thinking about what I need to go over. Compounds. Compound inequalities, and I'm just kind of looking over your assignments. So remember, ands come together, ors are apart. So an and, remember, you are not going to see the word in the final compound. You'll see something like this. That's going to be an and. For or, you'll see something like x is less than -4 or x is greater than 5. So in your or compound, you have to have this word or in there in your final answer, or else you're going to get a point taken off. And also, when you write your compounds, make sure that they make numerical sense. Make numerical sense. So double check what you think is going to be your final answer to make sure it makes sense. Like if you had x is greater than 5 or x is less than -4, if you switch those places, you would get that wrong because it doesn't make sense. So just keep that in mind. Even when you are solving compound inequalities, you still have to flip if you divide by negative. Might have to flip. Might have to flip in compounds, I guess you could say. Might have to flip. Yeah, in compounds. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to say it. And that big nasty problem that we did together that last day in class, we I think we had flipped 3 times or something like that. So yes, you could still flip in your compounds. And then what was the other one we did with that? Oh yes, absolute value. Absolute value inequalities. Okay, just like you solve the absolute value equations, you are going to clear the brackets first. Then you set up keeper and flow. Remember, flow, flip with the opposite sign. So if it's positive, then you're going to put it as a negative, that kind of a thing. And then graph. And then what I would do, I would write your compound from this. Then write compound answer. So clear the brackets first, then set up your keeper and flow. Think of your brackets as your x. So if it's like 2 times the absolute value of 1/2 x minus 5 plus 4, remember it's 2 times x. So you want to get rid of that plus 4 first. So you'd subtract and then you would divide. Some of you guys are getting your steps backwards on that on the last time we did absolute value equations. So just make sure you follow your steps. So up here, and comes together. I forgot this part. Or is going apart. And these are the graphs. Coming together, going apart. Because on your test, guys, you're going to have a lot of points on this test. I think there's something like 140 points. I mean, there's a grip of points because you have so many points for the actual work, especially like these problems. I mean, especially that one problem we did together. Oh my gosh, it was crazy big. So those problems have a lot of steps to them. And then you have the graph. And then you have the final compound as your answer. So there's a ton of points to this. So even if you mess up a little part in the solving, you'll still hopefully get most of the points. It just depends on where you made that mistake. So if like your first mistake is you divided everything when you're supposed to add or subtract, just know that whole thing is going to be wrong. So just double check to make sure you went through and looked at those steps. Remember, think of those brackets as your unknown. So you want to add or subtract first, then you multiply or divide. Multiply or divide, remember, is always going to be your last step because if you just think about your steps, don't call me after midnight, you have, D, distribute, C, for combined like terms, me, it's your move your variable, A, add or subtract, A is also after, and then midnight, it's your multiply or divide. So just kind of keep those in check with you guys. There's that. And then the last one is the 3.5. So graphing your linear inequalities. Generally, it's two variables. But, I could give you one that just says, graph the linear inequality, y is less than or equal to -6, something like that. So really pay attention to the words. If I just said solve a graph, you're looking at a number line. If I said graph the linear inequality, it's on a coordinate plane. So be very, very careful. Make sure you double, triple, quadruple check those directions. Shading. Remember, shading represents solutions. And I'm going to ask you that whether it's for a number line or for the coordinate plane. Shading represents solutions. And we're going to need that next chapter as well, because we're going to end up doing systems of linear inequalities, which is we're going to graph two or more linear inequalities on one coordinate plane. A system is just two equations in one, or two inequalities. But this is huge. This would actually be blue. You want to always remember that shading represents solutions. So when you graph this, graph as if it were an equation. Okay? The only part that differentiates the equation from the inequality is the fact of your sign. So graph it as if an equation. Check for symbol, your inequality symbol, to determine the line. And then the last part, the most important part on that, is you got to pick a point to show where the solutions are. Pick a point to show where the solutions are. Remember, I always pick a point that's not on the line, because if you pick a point on the line, you may get a true or false statement, and you don't know which way to shade. So pick a point that's not on the line. I always picked 0, 0, or if the inequality went through there. So if you're graphing something with a y-intercept of 0, then I would pick the next easiest point. And then that next easiest point for me is 1, 1. But really, the point doesn't matter. Now, if you produce a true statement, you're going to shade toward the point. Okay? You're going to shade toward it. If it's false, you can say this a couple different ways. I say shade away from it, but you have to remember you have to shade on the opposite side of the line. So shade away from point. Or another way of saying that is shade opposite side of line, opposite side of point. I don't know, you could just, it's your choice on your words. So for example, let's say, this is your graph, and let's say you chose this point. If it's false, you're shading up here. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, shade opposite side of the line, shade away from the point. So if it's true, you're going to shade toward the point. So this is shading away, and that's from the point. Shading toward the point is you're going to actually shade with the point. There we go. I'm just double checking to make sure I cover it. Yeah, we did. Oh, it's because the rule thing. That's why it slowed down so much. There we go. And you know what? I think I might post this because this wasn't a bad review. I didn't necessarily go over problems, but I just went over, what to remember for the test. I think I'm going to make it public because why not? Might help somebody out there. All right, kids. People out in YouTube land, have a great day. Be kind, be excellent. We'll see ya.